Welcome back to another episode of She. Today, I am here with my friend Tara. Tara, can you say hi?
Hey friends, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Of course, I'm so looking forward to this conversation because Tara recently wrote a book, Overbooked and Overwhelmed, and I got to read it early. And oh my gosh, it just spoke right to my heart. I was like, I need this book, and I feel like every woman in my generation probably needs this book. So I'm so thankful that it exists. And I wanted to talk about this concept because this, I would say this season of the podcast, we've talked a lot about what being good to your body looks like in different seasons of life. And one of the things that I think we often forget about is the fact that our stress levels and our commitments and our sense of overwhelm or lack thereof can impact our physical well-being and our bodies in so many ways. We often think about wellness being like green juice and workouts, but there's so much more to it. And so this is a really, really timely conversation in a culture that we live in that really glorifies busyness and glorifies productivity. And while those can be great things, they can also take a toll on us. You're listening to She with me, Jordan Lee Dooley, a faith-based wellness podcast to support you in your motherhood journey and inspire you to be good to your body. Come invited, leave ignited. So, Tara, I would love to hear from you. I know in Overbooked and Overwhelmed, you share kind of your personal breaking point. What was happening in your life and maybe even in your body that kind of signaled something was off, you were running on empty, and maybe things needed to change?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love that you touched on this, just like whole body wellness. I think it's easy as Christians to be like, just, tend to your soul and just tend to that. When I've realized, because I've had a breakdown in every area of my life, that's what led to this book, that I'm a whole person. And so it's not just my soul, like everything else, like my physical, my mental, my emotional, that all ties together. And like you said, I had, unfortunately, a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual breakdown and absolutely burnt myself out in all of the ways. And I look back and realize that God had been like flashing these yellow like warning signs in my life, like, Tara, it's time to slow down. Tara, you're distracting yourself into oblivion. Tara, you're overcommitting. And I started to feel like the tension in my body. My hormones were all up and down. I was like irritable. I was irrational. I was overstimulated to the point, although that's natural, but to like the point where it was like constant. I was anxious. I was stressed. And I think it's easy for a lot of us to get used to that feeling like, oh, this is just kind of how it's always going to be. This is what life is like in 2025 in our current culture. And it's easy to accept that. But I think it was really the Lord's grace to be like, I am going to let you come to the end of it to realize just how far down the line you have gone. And so I'm thankful for that. But I also wrote the book to hopefully help someone, whether they're at their breaking point or maybe to like tell someone, hey, like, we don't have to get to that point. Like maybe if we can, let's catch it. Let's see where we're at. Let's reorient. But it was really for me like an absolute breakdown where I had to honestly reinvent a lot of stuff in my spiritual life, in my emotional life, in my mental health space, even with God, which was
I have had experiences like that. And something you write about in the beginning of the book is your kitchen sink moment.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that? Because I think having that visual is so helpful for us to know like, oh, have I hit that point?
Yes.
Because sometimes I think we can fool ourselves and be like, I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine.
Oh, no,
and
for real.
No, like I think if we actually hear an actual example, we can identify moments like that in our own life that can be signals that something could be off.
Yeah, no, I love the kitchen sink moment because it was a hard moment. It
in
was
hindsight, right?
Right. Yes. No, for real. Because it's funny how pivotal it's become and how much God has used that in my life. Because I think all of us as women can relate. It was just a random weeknight at our house, and like a lot of women, I like to have the house and the kitchen tidy before bed. Jordan and I have talked about this. Like it kind of helps us mentally even to prepare for the next day. But it was literally 11:30 or midnight on a weeknight. And I was doing the dishes. My husband comes in and I'm like tearing up as I'm scrubbing this casserole dish. And my husband is like, what are you doing? Like, cause he knows I'm not a night owl. He's like, it is 11:30, like go to bed. And I told him like, no, I can't. I'm like, snapping at him. Not my proudest moment, but I'm going to admit it. I was not being very kind to him. And he's like, why not? Why can't you go to bed? And I said, because if I do, everything is going to fall apart. And I said that. And I mean, I laugh about it right now, but like it was the most telling moment where I'm like, wait, this is more about dishes. This is more about me feeling like I need to get ahead on tomorrow's schedule and having a clean sink. This was the Lord saying like, wait. You actually just revealed and admitted to yourself and to your husband that you think that everything depends on you. Like that's really what that moment was.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like my husband's in the room right now because he helps keep my podcast alive. And I'm pretty sure he's just like cackling because I've for sure had those moments, where I'm like everything. I've probably said that like everything depends on me, and that's not true. But like we can begin to believe that when we are so overwhelmed and exhausted. Okay, so let's talk about this. Why do you think our culture glorifies doing the most, like constantly being productive, constantly doing all the things, even when it's making us sick, even when it's wearing us down, even when it's negatively impacting our holistic health, our physical, emotional, spiritual, relational well-being?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind that I can relate to as well, and also what I see, a lot on social media, again, that's just a lot of our life. I mean, we see a lot of people's lives and what they're achieving. I genuinely think one of the biggest reasons is because we want to prove something. We want to prove that we're busy, that we're important, that our lives are full. I mean, tell me if you can relate. Like I will often try to tell people when they're like, how are you? How are you doing? How was your week? And I'll answer, oh, really busy. Like as if that makes me more important or more successful than someone who didn't have a busy week. Like I really think forward facing, it's because we want to prove something. It's because we want to measure up. It's because if we aren't busy, then like we fear that we're missing out. That's a big part of the book too, where we talk about there's a big FOMO. Like we're like, well, I don't want to miss out on what God has for me, or I don't want to miss out on what they're doing, or this trend, or this way of living,
or this opportunity.
This opportunity that we overcommit and overbook ourselves into oblivion where we realize, oh, wait, like, did I actually even do that for God? Did I even ask him if that's something I should do? Is that something that I even considered was within my physical capabilities? Or was that even something that honored my family or my time? Like it's a lot of proving, I think. And I experienced that too.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think in many cases anybody is directly telling us being busy is good and you should be busy and all these things. But it's a lot of like subtle messages we begin to internalize as we observe what we think and what we see others doing, as we see others accomplishing things, as we see more just examples of what we could be doing with our time, or how clean so-and-so's kitchen is, or how active their kids are and actively their kids are involved in things. Like we can quickly begin to feel like, well, I should be doing that too, without really taking into consideration all the circumstances and needs of our own life and our own bodies and minds. And so another thing I know you talked about is having like this running to-do list of like, I have to accomplish a ton of things throughout the day. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that has shifted for you since you kind of had this realization that something needed to change?
Right. So in this book, there is like so much theology, so much scripture, but we get down to the nitty gritty. And one thing that I really stand by and I emphasize in one of the chapters is just being really realistic about your to-do list and being really honest with what you think is urgent. Because a lot of us think there are 30 urgent things in a day. And I'm not just saying 30 things like eat lunch or,
the basic necessities.
Right. Like your basic things, like those aren't like the things that need to be checked off a box necessarily because they're always in progress. But there are things that we think are like, if I don't get these 30 things done in a day, then like everything's going to fall apart tomorrow, or I just have to set my week up like this. But for me, I notice that when I have 30 so-called, I'm using air quotes, urgent things in a day, they're really like a lot of those really aren't that urgent. Meaning like if they go to tomorrow or the next day, it's going to be okay. But we have to reorient our mind and get realistic with like maybe even 4 or 5 things are the most important things today. Because when we start to believe that there are a million things that are urgent and time sensitive, that we start to push things out that are important. I mean, we think about the story of Mary and Martha. Jesus says that, Mary has chosen the better portion. It won't be taken away from her because Mary chose the eternal thing, sitting with Jesus. And so I've had to ask myself like, okay, I want to leave room for Jesus. And I don't want to say, oh, I don't know where the time went. Like I didn't spend time with Jesus, because I am the one who is self-imposing this busyness and thinking that everything is important. And so even just practically looking at your week and saying, what can I do today and then tomorrow, and not feel like you need to like totally slam yourself in one day, because that starts to compound this lifestyle of hustle and stress and just this anxiety about completing things that no one really is putting that pressure on you. And no one is really setting that expectation, especially God, on you to complete 30 things in a day to be accomplished, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like that saying, and I think it comes from the book Essentialism, but it's from it reminds me of that quote that says something along the lines of like, when everything becomes a priority, nothing is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when we prioritize and we have a ton of priorities, it's like the main thing is no longer the main thing. Right. And
Right.
it's a convicting thought, because if you do, I know I've been in seasons where I have so many things on my to-do list and feel like I have to accomplish 15 things in a day. And if I only get 3 of them done, they might be the biggest things, but I feel like I didn't accomplish anything, And it's like,
Right.
go back to, well, what's the main thing?
Yep.
Why am I even doing all of
Yep.
this anyway?
Yep.
That's the other thing. I'd be curious your thought on like the purpose driving our productivity, for lack of a better word, kind of in air quotes, because I know that sometimes like I'll have all these things on my list or I'll be super overwhelmed. And then I kind of take inventory of like, why am I doing this? And why am I doing that? And what's the reason for this? And very quickly things start to like fall off if you actually start asking yourself that question honestly.
Yeah. Oh gosh. This is something I'm still wrestling with, and something I want to be very honest about is that I wrote the book about this, but I am still reading it again because like, it's not even just my words, but the truth from scripture about like, Lord, how do I handle all of this? Because it's so easy for me to slip into the desire to be productive more than to have proximity with God. I mean, I use that phrase like that so many of us are settling for a counterfeit, meaning we want to be productive for God without being close to God, without having that proximity with Him. And so a question that I ask myself all the time, Jordan, is like, if all of this fell away, like, would I still be content? Because it's easy for us to fall into what I achieve, what I'm productive in equals my worth, equals my success for the kingdom. But, there's that harrowing phrase that Jesus says in the Gospels, like, away from me, I never knew you. Like, Lord, we did all these things in your name. And He's like, but like, were you with me? Like, did I know you? Did you know me? Like, and that comes through spending time with Him. And so I think that's a big thing we need to dismantle right now, especially in culture. People are like, wanting to break glass ceilings and wanting to hit these financial goals, and not necessarily a bad thing. But as Christians, we have a better way of thinking about this, like that our worth is not tied to what we do. But when we are in proximity, when we are in the presence of God regularly, I really do believe that that produces success. Now, it may not like be the world's definition of success, but it does produce a success that lasts, like Mary, that is eternal.
Oh, it's convicting. It's something that I think we
Same.
constantly need to be reminded of.
Yeah.
This is another question that I have. I think that's kind of that piggybacks on this.
Yeah.
So how are we supposed to know if we are truly overbooked and overwhelmed, or if we're just having a busy day?
Yeah.
Like, what's the differentiator? What are the warning signs that we need to be paying attention to?
Right. This is, okay, I love that you said this, because first of all, I hope there's a lot of freedom in overbooked and overwhelmed, because there's nuance to life, right? Like, you're in the season of about to have your third baby, and like, you're also launching a book, like your life is crazy. I'm in a similar season. I'm 6 months postpartum, book, just normal life. I mean, even if you're not having babies and writing books, like, we all have really full plates and we have seasons that look different. But I would say for me, some really big things that were key was just repeated patterns throughout a week. So if you want to kind of like, maybe even this week as you're listening, like, take note of the next 7 days and see, like, maybe the first thing, like, how are you responding to your spouse, to your kids, to people that you are in close relationship throughout a week? Is it a regular pattern of irritability, of impatience? Again, I'm not saying you need to be perfect, but like, is there a pattern of like things easily set you off, right? So like something happens, even minor, maybe even big, but like you break down in tears regularly, or the anxiety and stress ramps up a lot easier by small things. I think those small things are often really good tells of how we're handling life in general. I would also say physically, right? So like, even just take note of like, how is your body feeling? We rush so quickly through life that we don't take inventory of our physical bodies. I think especially as women, when we're taking care of not only our jobs, but maybe kids and other people and other responsibilities, we as women like shoulder everything before, I think, ourselves sometimes. So we don't take inventory to pause and be like, how am I? How are your shoulders? How are your hormones feeling? Do you feel even present in your body. Like I've
Your
had this
jaw
feeling,
constantly clenched.
seriously, like
Yeah.
relax. Like I'm telling myself that right now, even sitting
Yeah.
here, not like I'm tense, but
Mhm.
I just think we're naturally
Yeah.
like that. But even
Well, and do
just
you think we've
physically,
kind of gotten used to, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
oh,
but
go.
do you
Yeah.
feel like we've also kind of gotten used to like just holding tension in our bodies and thinking that's
Gosh.
normal, or like just the
Yes.
discomfort or the tension
Yeah.
and just being like, oh, this is just like, you think that's normal until
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have that released or you see a chiropractor and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
For real. Well, and something I say in the book too is like, we were not called to be wrung out like a dishcloth in the name of
Mm,
Jesus. Like, we're like, oh, I need to self sacrifice and surrender. Yes, that is biblical, but not on the altar of like literally tearing yourself apart, like
mhm,
neglecting your spirit, neglecting your physical body, neglecting talking to a therapist, to a counselor, like taking care of you. I don't, I don't know if you've already mentioned this, but just the fact that you're a whole person and,
mm,
like being good to your body. This is also like sister books in a way where we're like,
yeah,
we also need to take care of the temple that God has given us and be
yeah,
aware of that because it's so easy. And I think we just kind of like shift into neutral and think this is just how we have to live because life is so busy. I can't stop and take a moment to evaluate. But you literally can't not afford to. Like, you have to do this if you want to
mhm,
live in a more sustainable way. And I think honestly too, like to the woman listening, thinking like, Tara, you have no idea. Jordan, you have no idea like what's on my calendar and like how busy life is. While that may be true, what I can give you hope in and what the Bible and what Jesus gives you hope in is that like life is not going to be easy and there's going to be seasons of insanity and busyness. But what Jesus offers you is a better, more sustainable pace, which is following his lead in scripture in
mhm,
the gospels to be able to handle it. I mean, I even say this in the book in one of my favorite chapters about less rush and more rhythm, that
mhm,
Jesus was the one with the most purpose and mission and probably had the greatest excuse to run around like his hair was on fire because he had so much to do. And yet, what did he do? He was able to handle the busyness of healing and preaching and traveling and all these things, but he had like regular touch points throughout his day with his father
mhm,
to like be still, to
mhm,
take a nap, to pray.
yeah,
Like, and Jesus sets the example for us. And like, we would be wise to take after it.
yes. Yeah. He had like a very rhythmic, like his rest was regular and rhythmic, but he was
Yeah,
also, his plate was still full. And I think that's a
for
really great
sure.
example.
Yeah.
I'd love if you can give us what is one maybe small realistic rhythm that helped you move from performance and productivity to being more present?
Yeah. First thing that comes to my mind is silence, just being
Mm,
comfortable with silence. And honestly, I kind of love it now. I used to hate it. I used to be the person, again, this is not bad, but like I used to be the person that like had to always listen to music or a podcast or be learning. I think even just like
mm,
feeling like I needed to accomplish in my moments, like listening to a podcast to help me grow or like again, not bad, but I just like was filling every single moment with something and
mm,
being comfortable with the silence, like whether it's driving in silence or getting ready for bed in silence and not having something on, like whatever that moment looks like for you. The silence was really telling because it actually just gave me a moment to be honest and to be aware of what was going on in my spirit, and also just for the Lord to like speak into my spirit. Because the
mm.
noise, although sometimes they're really good things, even an audio Bible, even worship, like just being okay with that silence to be able to be receptive. And also, I'm sure I haven't done the science or the research. Maybe you have, but like even I'm sure there's something scientific about our bodies, just like being still, being quiet,
Oh,
like
100%.
letting that
Yeah.
wash over you. So
Turning
I
your
don't know,
mind off
like
a little bit. Yeah.
trying that out next time you wash the dishes or next time you,
Mm.
drive in the car and, maybe have kids in the car and they're loud like mine, but like just trying something, I think
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really, I think that's a really good like option or opportunity to check in with yourself too, to check in with God and to be, because if you're like uncomfortable in the silence, that's a huge
Yeah.
yellow flag to
But
be
it's
aware of.
it's
But it's also
simple.
practice. And I love that you said
Yeah.
I used to hate it and now I really love it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a discipline, right? That you
Right.
kind of begin to implement and learn.
Yeah.
And I love how simple that is. It's like,
Right.
just give yourself 5 minutes of silence a day to start with, because even like you would think we would all get that, but to be honest, we really don't. There's always something pinging. There's always something playing. There's always a notification. Like we're always being inundated with needs,
Right.
or from the inside world, like from our own home, or from the outside world digitally. And so
Yeah.
just that simple, like that's almost kind of like a mini detox every day for your
Right.
heart and your mind.
Right. Well, like
And that,
something that I say too is like we're always like, God, where are you? Where's your presence?
mm,
Like, God, I want to live more on fire for you. And yet, like, if we're honest, we're like, what are we filling our time with? Like, is it like doom scrolling, as in like just scrolling for hours and hours and hours? Is it like binging other things? Is it like, what are we distracting ourselves with? Because that often reveals like what we're giving our time to. And then in turn, maybe how we're neglecting God. And then maybe we've just trained our brains to be constantly stimulated when the simple practice of, like you said, 1 or 2 minutes, 5 minutes of just being silent, it's honestly kind of cathartic. Like, try it. Seriously. Like, don't take my word for it.
It's hard to listen when there's constant input, So yeah, that's so good.
For sure.
Okay, Tara, I could ask you 100,000 more questions because this is such a poignant topic, but I want everyone to buy your book. I want everyone to read this book. It has blessed me, everything I've gotten to read in it. I know it'll bless so many. So can you tell us where to get the book and how to stay connected with you if we want to learn more?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would be honored. I think if you love this, you would love Overbooked and Overwhelmed, and you can grab that anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Christian Book, all the places, and grab a copy of Be Good to Your Body. Because like we said, they're sister books.
They really go well together.
Hey, do your summer and your fall book club. We got you covered. But so grab those books there. Would be so honored. And if you want to keep up with me, I'm over on Instagram at Miss Tara Sun. And then I also have a podcast called Truth Talks with Tara, and my episode with Jordan is coming out in the next little bit. So take a listen.
Awesome. Tara, thanks for everything you've shared. Thank you for writing this book. It's so needed. And I always love our time together. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jordan. It was such a joy.
To learn more about the She Podcast or get involved in our growing community, come hang out on Instagram at Jordan Lee Dooley or check out the show notes for each episode at jordanleedooley.com/show notes. Thanks for tuning in today. And until next time, stay rooted in faith and remember to do the small things to be good to your body daily.